Imagine you wake up every morning with $86,400 in your bank account. The rule is simple. You must spend it all by midnight. You cannot carry over a balance. You cannot invest it. Whatever you don't use is deleted, vanished, gone forever. What would you do? Marcus Sterling stared at the reflection in the floor-to-ceiling glass of his 54th floor Manhattan office. He didn't answer the question immediately. He was too busy calculating the cost of the silence. "I'd spend every cent," Marcus finally replied, turning to the young journalist, Sarah, who sat with a recorder trembling in her hand. "But here is the catch, Sarah. We all get that account. It's called time, 86,400 seconds a day, and most people let the bank burn their deposit." The architect of efficiency. Marcus Sterling was not just a CEO, he was an institution. At 48, he ran Sterling Dynamics, a consultancy firm that specialized in operational velocity. Fortune 500 companies hired him to find lost time, the way salvage divers look for sunken gold. He was a man who lived by the Eisenhower Matrix. If it wasn't urgent and important, it didn't exist to him. His wrist adorned a Patek Philippe, not to show wealth, but to mark precision. He scheduled his sleep in 90-minute REM cycles. He ate nutrient-dense meals to avoid the afternoon slump. He was the human embodiment of Parkinson's law. Work expands to fill the time available for its completion. Marcus simply shrank the time, so the work had no choice but to be done instantly. But on this snowy Tuesday in November, the ledger was about to crack. The glitch in the system. It started with a vibration in his pocket, an unscheduled number. Marcus ignored it. Rule number 1, never let external interruptions dictate your internal schedule. He walked into the boardroom for the merger of the decade, a $4 billion acquisition of a logistics AI company. The lawyers were there, the bankers were sweating, and the clock was ticking. "Gentlemen," Marcus began, his voice steady, "time is not money. Money is renewable. You can lose $1 million and make $1 million. Time is non-renewable. This merger isn't about assets, it's about buying speed." He was brilliant. He dismantled their inefficiencies using the 80-20 rule, the Pareto Principle, showing them how 20% of their operations were causing 80% of their delays. He was in his element. But then the phone vibrated again and again. It broke his deep work state. He frowned, pulled it out, and saw a text from his sister, Elena. "It's Dad. The hospital says it's time. You need to come now. Connecticut." The opportunity cost. Marcus froze. His father, Arthur, had been in a nursing home for 3 years. Marcus visited exactly once a month for 45 minutes. It was scheduled. It was efficient. Now, Marcus thought, the merger papers were on the table. If he left now, the deal would wobble. The psychology of the room would shift. He did the math. Cost of leaving, potential loss of a $4 billion deal, reputation damage, stock dip. Value of staying, cementing his legacy as the king of Wall Street. He looked at the partners. "Take a 10-minute recess. I need to handle a logistics issue." He stepped into the hallway and called the doctor. "Is he stable?" Marcus asked, checking his watch. "Mr. Sterling, he is fading. It's a matter of hours, maybe less." "Can he wait until tonight? I can be there at 8 p.m. The doctor's silence was deafening. "You can't negotiate with death, Marcus. It doesn't run on your schedule." The commute of reckoning. Marcus made a decision that defied his logic. He left the building. He didn't take his driver. The traffic on Fifth Avenue was a gridlock. He ran to Grand Central Terminal. Sitting on the train, vibrating with adrenaline, Marcus tried to work. He opened his laptop, but the screen blurred. For the first time in 20 years, he was forced to sit still without an objective. He looked around the train car. To his left, a teenager was laughing at a video on his phone, wasting time. To his right, an elderly couple held hands, looking out the window at the snow, spending time. It hit him then. The theory of constraints. In business, you identify the bottleneck that slows down the system. In his life, he was the bottleneck. He had optimized his life for output, but he had zero throughput of emotion. He was efficient, but he wasn't effective. As Peter Drucker once wrote, "There is nothing so useless as doing efficiently that which should not be done at all." Was closing the merger efficient? Yes. Was it what